There's a lot of different directions the Steelers could go in this NFL draft, but a lot of people wonder, is it offense or defense that needs to be the priority on the first 2 days? We'll talk about that right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Today, the guest is Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on the video. If you're enjoying it, hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily content Monday through Friday, as well as our breaking news episodes. Joining me today is Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, what's up on another Friday?
Chris, happy Friday. The weekend weather is supposed to be phenomenal. I'm looking forward to not, 40 degrees and snow, which will take, it's spring in Pittsburgh. Anything can happen. But we need something. I'm over the snow. It's almost May. What's going on here?
Listen, I'm over the snow in December when it starts. I'm not about the first little one's cute, and I'm like, all right, I'm tired of it. Get out of here. But it's supposed to be in the 80s this weekend. I'm gonna be outside. I'm gonna be enjoying some sun. I'm gonna love that. So I agree with you right here in the city of Pittsburgh. But the one thing the city of Pittsburgh is going to keep talking about until it happens is the NFL draft, which now is less than a week away, set to start on next Thursday, when we will know what the Steelers have done with their first round pick, the 20th overall. We have talked about a lot of positions on this show. We've talked about quarterback. We've talked about defensive line, safety, cornerback, or tight end. Well, we haven't talked about tight end in this draft. Wide receiver, linebacker, all the different spots that you could talk about this class. We have looked it over. But the bottom line does come down to, what do the Steelers want to be in 2022, or who do they want to be in 2022? Because this upcoming season, we know that Mitch Trubisky's been their signed quarterback. We know that they've invested in the offensive line and free agency. They're hoping that some of the younger guys can come up on the offensive line. And this is a defense that has a lot of playmakers on it. But at 20, you have an opportunity to get a playmaker on either side of the ball. The question is, Jenna, which needs to take priority? I have been all about getting a defensive star. But Am I being over the top here, or should the Steelers still be looking on the offensive side of the ball and saying that's where you need to go?
Well, it's funny because I think you can make arguments for both, and you can make logical arguments for both, because obviously you look at the defense and you see all the talent that's there and all the guys that they have right now. I mean, we've talked at length about Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, all of these, key pieces that are here right now. And we know this team's going to have to rely on the defense a lot this year. So, of course, instinctually, I want to say, I'm going with that. That it should be an area they focus on, because we know the offense, there are going to be some struggles. But saying that in itself, it's like, all right, we'll go get the offense, go get someone to bolster your offense, whether it's your offensive line, find different ways to do that as well, because of the fact that you don't think, but Mitch Trubisky might not be the long-term answer for what you're looking to do at quarterback. So for me, I'm just kind of like, you can go a little bit back and forth. I do say defense. I really think I'm with you on that one, is that they should continue to bolster this defense, because that is going to be the unit they rely heavily on, at least for the next couple of seasons, while they're figuring out who that next franchise quarterback is going to be. But at the same time, again, you can make arguments for both. I don't entirely think there's a wrong answer here, as long as you know, which we expect Kevin Colbert, Art Rooney II, Mike Tomlin and company to do, as long as you're getting better as a team, it doesn't entirely, quote unquote, matter. But at the same time, defense, I think, should be where they go.
That's where I'm at too. It's just, and again, there's always a best player available situation. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself into one thing, and the Steelers try their best not to do that. But this year, again, at 20th overall, the chips would have to fall in a very odd way for me to say, all right, that's the move. And this is why, and again, I'm not against the Steelers taking a quarterback in the first round. A lot of people are saying absolutely not. I'm always like, hey, if you have to be prepared for a number of contingencies. And that's what, in my opinion, the best front offices in the NFL do, is because you can come into a draft, and if you're so dead set on making a specific move and it's gone by the time you get there, what are you going to do? The best situation is to be prepared to have a path that's going to allow you to make different moves. And again, I'm just thinking the likely way how the board will play out. That's why I've been saying for a while, I'm not sold that quarterback is going to be the first round pick. And with the wide receivers, I think too many wide receivers will fly off the board quickly in this class. And that'll leave you in a situation where either a top safety will be available, a top defensive lineman will be available, or a top cornerback will be available, or the Steelers trade up to get one of those top prospects a couple of picks before them. That's where I see real value being added in this draft and giving yourself time and space to do that. And I've said this before on this show. If you go back, Kevin Colbert, one of his biggest picks of all time, Troy Polamalu. He picked Troy Polamalu in 2003 when they had Tommy Maddox at quarterback, who was terrible, and they knew that. And the very next year, they were able to go and get Ben Roethlisberger, who became Ben Roethlisberger. I can totally see it being a similar move at the end of his career, saying, hey, let's go get this superstar defender who's going to be an X factor on this team, be it on a rookie contract for the next 4 or 5 years. And then the next GM next year with that class that everyone's talking about at the quarterback position, they can choose what to do then. And it doesn't have to be that class either, because you see in the NFL, quarterbacks are changing all the time, Jenna. Kyler Murray isn't happy about being in Arizona. Who knows what happens there? Lamar Jackson isn't happy with being in Baltimore. And I'm just naming 2 names, but there could be 5 or 6 different quarterbacks. I mean, Russell Wilson's in Denver. Who would have thought that 4 years ago? That's what I'm saying is that. Go ahead.
I would say, don't you go saying Lamar Jackson to the Steelers now. We can't cause a hoopla this early.
I'm trying to start fires. Okay, that's all. That's what we do here in the lock. Start a pot. That's me.
Yeah, stir the pot, start fires, all the fun things.
But that's my point, is that not only would the quarterback class be available, but you never know what free agent you can add at that point when you're ready to do so. But this year, I think the way that the board is going to play out is going to allow them to get a star defender and really lock up the potential to have a superstar defense over the next 4 to 5 years. And that's what you need to have when you're looking for that quarterback.
And you mentioned the rookie contract. That's such an important part of this, because again, when you have superstars this young that either show out and ball out completely in their rookie year, their sophomore season, their 3rd and 4th years, they're not on that big money contract yet. They're not, signing for TJ Watt money. They're not doing that yet. So if you can tap into that potential, which obviously teams do, and that's one of the reasons why they have rookie contracts, but if you can get that guy that's going to be a superstar for a unit is going to be your biggest strength for the next handful of years, that is just that propels you so much into what you want to do, where again, that your offense needs to be retooled a little bit. You need that franchise quarterback, that guy that's going to lead you into the future, and hopefully that will be the piece that you win a Super Bowl with. But again, this elite defense, you have a guy balling out on his rookie contract, you're going to get a lot more value in that way too.
I hear you on that, and I agree with you on that. But there's a few questions that we've gotten from some of our listeners about some of those defensive prospects. I want to talk about those in just a minute here. But first, we got to talk about one of our great sponsors, and that is Shady Rays. Now, wait a sec. Got to go. Bow. There it is. Shady Rays. You see how fresh they are. They're polarized too, nice. Jenna. Thank you, right? They look good. I can see everything in here. I'm reading off my screen pretty clearly. Shady Rays. They're an independent sunglasses company, and they're giving you the features of $200 sunglasses for just a fraction of the price. That means you get polarized lenses, boom, right here, well-constructed durable frames, as you can see right there on the camera. And when you get that, they're getting premium high-end finishes. Also, something that you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every single pair that you buy. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try. If you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays exclusively for our listeners. Head to shadyrays.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On. You'll get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Again, that's promo code LOCKED ON for their best steal of the season, 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. We're also brought to you by BetOnline.net, which BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. With NBA playoffs underway, the Stanley Cup playoffs are right around the corner. Major League Baseball's back in full swing. You get all the things to bet on, so why not go on BetOnline and try to make some bread? Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball, Stanley Cup playoffs, all that right on BetOnline. It's your continued source for all your sports wagering information, live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action at BetOnline, where the game starts. And we do back-to-back ad reads. We keep it rolling here, so I'm going to take these sunglasses off. But let's keep it rolling with our next thing here, because one of the positions that I talked about is the defensive line. And there's a lot of excitement over the prospect of getting a player like Jordan Davis, like Devontae Wyatt, like Travis Jones, or even some of the later guys like Perion Winfrey and DeMarvin Leal. But this listener had a very interesting question when it came to the defensive line, because they posed a really good point. Are we a little bit rushing here because the Steelers do have still Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt, and Montravius Adams is back, and people like Isaiah Loudermilk? So Jared from Cleveland had this to ask.
Hey, Chris. My name is Jared Luzader from the Cleveland, Ohio area. Big Pittsburgh fan in the Cleveland area. I'm just calling because I know that there's been a lot of talk that we really need a defensive tackle, but I'm wondering if that's even the case, if we're going to have, Stephon Tuitt, Cam Hayward, Tyson Alualu, Isaiah Loudermilk, Montravius Adams, all of those guys back. To me, it sounds like we've got a fortified, defensive line, and we don't have that, for sure pass run or run stop guy in the middle. But I was just wondering if we really think that's something that we would, want to spend a first or second round pick on when we've got so much young depth there now. Thank you, Chris. Hopefully I make it on the show, and I love your show. Keep it up, man.
Thank you, Jared from Cleveland. Really appreciate you reaching out and giving us that question. Also, be sure when you're calling in, you can also, if you're an international caller, because we have had an international person, you don't want to pay those fees, you can absolutely go email LOSteelersTopicBag@gmail.com, and when you do so, you can just send an audio clip with your name and where you're from, and you'll be added to the list of callers. If you want to call in, that's 412-223-6644. But Jenna, what did you think of Jared's question there? Because the defensive line, we've talked about it a lot, and yes, there are guys there. My stance has just been Cameron Hayward, early 30s, Stephon Tuitt, late 20s, Tyson Alualu, mid 30s. There's young guys that you're excited about, but I truly think that group could use a young star to propel things forward. And it's not a must, but it's a very important target, I think, with this class.
No, I think you're right too. And again, you have that age. There's been the jokes about, Cam Hayward and his age, and he leans into them in all good fun, which is so fun to see. But yeah, you can never have enough young players, especially like you said, a young star come into a position like that, because one, they're learning from all of those guys. They are getting taken under the wing of guys like Cam Hayward, like Tyson Alualu, like Stephon Tuitt, and that goes a long way too with these rookies and with their confidence. I think it's a phenomenal question for many reasons, because again, this is going to be one of those tough decisions the Steelers brass has to make. And if a guy falls to you at that point, or I don't entirely say if you're trading up for that, but if things work out in the way that they might, where a solid star at that defensive tackle position kind of falls to you, then the Steelers obviously will explore those options. But I think they will look into that, because again, that's something that they do so well, where they look at what the best available guy is and don't entirely say, oh, we have to pigeonhole ourselves and going this position, this position, this position. I think that is going to be something for them that is a pretty good option. But it's one of those things you can kind of see. Again, I feel like I'm saying, like, you can go either way type thing, but you really could in this scenario. I do think that it never hurts to add youth. And also, Jared, shouts to you for being a Steelers fan in Cleveland.
Holding it down.
I know, honestly. I'm sure you hear about it a lot. So keep holding down the fort. We appreciate it.
Absolutely is. It's awesome to hear still, and that's one thing I wanted to make sure when you call in, let me know where you're from, because if you
Yeah.
we've had some people from Northern Kentucky, some people from Cleveland, like just area like Bengals country, but I'm waiting to get some people from Ravens country. That's always interesting too. But that's always cool to talk. But I agree with you, Jenna. I mean, part of this also isn't just about getting talent. It's about getting talent that's going to be able to learn from Cam Hayward and learn from Stephon, because like you said, it's about torch bearing, and Cam Hayward has certainly carried the torch from. People forget he was drafted in 2011. He was there on the last few years of Polomalu. He got to see James Harrison and James Ferrier, guys like that, and he got to like learn what it meant to be a Steeler, and then he became that guy that's kind of carrying that torch forward for the defense, even while they were rebuilding the defense. And you want a guy to come in, have star potential on your defensive line for the next 5 to 8 years, and learn from the dude who carried that torch. I agree with you entirely, John.
Yeah, and challenge them too, because I think guys like Cam Hayward, guys like Stephon Tuitt, Tyson Alualu, love that challenge, love that sense of going against that, young guy, the new blood, whatever you want to call it type thing, where it's like, oh, this guy thinks he's going to beat me. Oh, he thinks he's fast. He thinks he's young. Son, I've been doing this before you're born. Those types of things. Like, I want to hear that. I want to see those battles at training camp. And I think guys, the veterans, like we mentioned, want to have that with those younger guys. It always is so fun to watch that. And again, that's kind of the way that the defense can build and the defense can grow and all those types of things.
Absolutely. And I know this, it's not official, but Cam Hayward be starting fights on purpose. He can't. Fights, but Cam looks to pick at people. He wants to see how far he can push you. I see that every time he can, man. Like a training camp, you can see it. So it's part of what Cam does, man. But that's again why he's a leader, because he tests you. He wants to see how feisty you are, and he wants to see, okay, that's who's going to be the guy who sticks up for his teammates later on. And it's all good because they're all teammates after it all, and Cam Hayward's been here long enough, so he knows what he's doing. All right, I want to do another quick. We have 2 more questions we're going to get to, but I want to do a quick break before we get to both of them, because some of the 2 of them sort of tie together. So we're going to address them in a little bit, because part of one of the questions ties into the position of the other. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Built Bar. Built Bar is, of course, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, and it's going to help you stick to your resolutions. Now, you made your New Year's resolutions way back in December and heading into January, and now it's April, and you're starting to say, wait a minute, I wanted to get my summer body right, and now here I am. I'm maybe a little bit behind. Well, if you're having trouble eating snacks that are weighing you down too much, this is where Built Bar comes in, because you can eat them and actually enjoy them while they're actually great for you. And if you haven't tried their puff flavors, they're the best kind, because they're protein-infused marshmallows. They're fluffy, marshmallowy, and they're low in calorie but high in protein, just like regular Built Bars. Covered in 100% real chocolate, you can get puff flavors that are like cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, and other flavors as well. And if you want a regular Built Bar, it's the same thing. Low in calorie, high in protein. The average Built Bar, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to the average candy bar, that's 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. That's the healthier option that you're looking at there when you pick a Built Bar, saving you all that stuff. And there's so many flavors of Built Bar to choose from, where there's double chocolate, coconut, almond, peanut butter, brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie. All those different flavors available when you go to Built.com right now. And when you go to Built.com, be sure to use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, LOCKED15. And you'll get 15% off your next order of Built Bars that you can have delivered right to your home when you visit Built.com. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Unfortunately, Jenna Harner couldn't finish the show with us. I mean, she did. We did actually record a full 3rd segment, but unfortunately, the internet connection, we had some difficulties with how it came out, and I was trying to edit it down and make it look cleaner, but it was just too messed up for us to include it in the show. We do thank Jenna for all of her time she always makes for this podcast. She's on here every week, and she's amazing. You hear all the time. That's why we keep having her back, is because she always is amazing. We're happy to have her all the time. Look forward to maybe having her next week if there's time after the Steelers' 1st round pick. We'll see how that plays out. But do follow her work at Channel 11 WPXI, all the great things that they do. They'll be doing special draft coverage. I'll be part of it. So do check them out at WPXI.com. If you're not in Pittsburgh, if you are in Pittsburgh, turn on Channel 11. You'll see their amazing work. But I wanted to get to 2 more questions submitted by our listeners and viewers. And some of those questions revolved around the safety position because the Steelers still don't have a safety. And there was an interesting question here about Terrell Edmunds and tied in a bit of the offense as well. But this is Travis from Wheeling, West Virginia.
Hey, Chris. This is Travis from Wheeling, West Virginia, about 50 minutes south of Pittsburgh. I was just calling in to say that I'm a really big fan of the podcast, and I've been listening for a long time, and we're around the same age, so we know a lot of the same facts about the team. But basically my question was, what do you think about the safety situation? I really don't like Terrell Edmunds at safety. I mean, I guess we could bring him back if we had to. However, I feel like he misses too many tackles, open field tackles as well, which is a problem. I really think Tyrann Mathieu would be a great addition to the team, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we can go after a guy in the mid rounds. Maybe the kid from Florida, or someone like that. My other question, real quick, is how do you think Matt Canada's offense, scheme-wise, is going to shape up this season with Ben gone? I know last season there was a lot of gunslinging, and Ben was throwing the ball, 1-2 seconds after he got it snapped to him. I'm just wondering, now that we've got some quarterbacks and possibly getting a quarterback in the draft, how are we going to use Canada? Because I feel like last year I was really disappointed in his scheming, and maybe that was just because how limited Ben was. But I'm really intrigued to see what he brings to the table this coming season. I think if we end up doing poorly, I think we need to move on. But sorry for the long voicemail, but I just wanted to call in and say keep up the good work and go Steelers. Bye.
Now, we thank Travis for the phone call there and for the good questions. Now, first on the topic of Terrell Edmunds, I've said a lot on this show. I think Terrell Edmunds gets a bad rap for not being as great as some people think he should have been as a first-round draft pick. And I look at it, he's not a supreme playmaker, but he's a solid safety. He's a big reason why the tight end position hasn't been a killer for the Steelers over the past 3 seasons. If you look back at the numbers, what they used to be when tight ends used to just rampage on the Steelers, nobody could stop them. And since that he's become a consistent starter for the team, it hasn't been a factor. In fact, when they play the Ravens, that used to be something that killed them. It hasn't really killed them over the years with Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson and their connection. Terrell Edmunds goes toe-to-toe with Mark Andrews a lot and wins. But I do feel you on the tackles thing. He does have a missed tackle percentage of 9.6. That puts him in the middle of really the safety class of guys who play the majority of the snaps for their teams at 9.6%. But I want you to hear who he's right around. Also at 9.6%, star safety for the Broncos, Justin Simmons. At a higher percent of missed tackles was Tyrann Mathieu at 10.2%. Malcolm Jenkins at 11.8%. Micah Hyde at 11.8%. Quadre Diggs, Micah Fitzpatrick, Juan Thornhill, Marcus Williams, Jesse Bates, Trayvon Moehrig, Budda Baker, Darnell Savage all have significantly higher rates of missed tackle percentages than Terrell Edmunds. And again, it doesn't excuse him. He still needs to be better at that. And he still ranks, I think, 15th among starting safeties who play the majority of the snaps. But still, it's not a terrible clip. And this is where I'm at with Terrell Edmunds. I'm not saying the Steelers should resign Terrell Edmunds because he's going to solve every problem that they have. I'm not saying that. I am saying that it would make a lot of sense if you get a guy who doesn't cost you that much to be a starter and a good role-playing starter on a team with a lot of stars on it. And again, if they go and draft a safety early on this year, say they trade up for Kyle Hamilton, say they get Lewis Seen, Daxton Hill, or Jaquan Brisker, and you have a healthy 3-man safety rotation that you can disguise coverages with, I think that's a key to success on defense. And you disguise a lot of packages and a lot of coverages for quarterbacks to read. There's a lot of good things that could come from that, at least in my opinion. But Terrell Edmunds, I agree he's not the star that they wanted him to be when they picked him in the first round, but he's also an asset that I do think they could bring back on the cheap. If they can get Tyrann Mathieu, and I brought this up earlier in the week, I think he would be a great mix if they could get a Jaquan Brisker or a Lewis Cine type of safety, because Mathieu is more like what Daxton Hill brings. We talked about that with one of our callers on yesterday's show. So if you wouldn't want to double up on the same type of safety, but if you could get the two different roles of the bigger, strong safety like Brisker, like Edmonds, like Cine, who's good against covering tight ends, but maybe not the best with ball skills. Or if you get one of those guys, then you get Tyrann Mathieu on the other side. But if you get a Daxton Hill in the draft, that's when you can go get a Terrell Edmunds and bring him back. And then I think he fits pretty well. But again, we'll see how the Steelers play this out. As far as your Matt Canada question, I agree. What we saw out of the offense wasn't enough last year, but I do think a lot of it is because of Ben Roethlisberger and his limited mobility. And the Steelers, Mason Rudolph has said publicly, we didn't do half the playbook. And that's when he said that, I was like, wow, I guess that confirms they didn't do half the playbook. And I'm really intrigued to see, what do the Steelers do offensively, planning wise? Do they make it so that they're able to put the quarterback on the move a little bit more, move the pocket, force defenders to think a little bit more? Does that open more people up downfield? Does it open up more opportunities for Najee Harris? Does having a quarterback who can throw the ball deeper down the field more accurately, because let's face it, Ben Roethlisberger's deep accuracy was just gone last year. But if you have Mitch Trubisky with a younger arm, does that also get you some more big play opportunities, as well as scare safeties back a little bit so Najee Harris has more space to run? All those types of questions are things that I think could be relevant to Matt Canada. And if he doesn't get it right this year, if they stink, if they're decent this year, I think he sticks around. But if they stink, yeah, he'll be gone. They'll get a new guy because they don't want him tainting up who will end up being the franchise quarterback. Because I am convinced if Mitch Trubisky doesn't light it up this year, they're going to get in their guy next year, whether it's in free agency or the NFL draft. And again, it ties back to getting offense or defense. And we had this question from Garrett from Minneapolis, who asked a good question involving Kyle Hamilton and the safety position. Here's Garrett's question.
Hey, Chris, this is Garrett from Minneapolis. I was actually just curious if, with all the firepower that's being added in the AFC North with Deshaun Watson going to the Browns, should the Steelers look to be bolstering their defense instead of trying to add offensive weapons right away? And do you think it's more likely that they tip their cap on trading up for a guy like Kyle Hamilton instead of other people? Thanks. Love the pod and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Garrett, for your question. It's a very good question. I do think they should be looking to trade up. I've talked about this on the show a few times now. I really think there's a smart move to be had here. If you can afford it, if it doesn't cost you a first or a second next year, and it doesn't prevent you from here's my parameters. If the Steelers are going to trade up this year for a really good defensive player, they should make sure it doesn't remove their second round pick this year or their first and second round picks next year. And maybe that's not doable. But like I did early, just last week on this podcast, I talked with Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. He said he feels like the Vikings would accept a trade at number 12 at the 12th pick overall to give the Steelers the 12th pick, if the Steelers give them the 20th overall pick, the third round pick this year, and a third round pick next year. You do those things and you move up, I think it's very much worth it. And as I've said before on this show, and I said earlier in this show, there's an interesting parallel here. Kevin Colbert, he's in his last year. This is his last ever NFL draft, one of the most memorable drafts that he had. Well, not memorable drafts, excuse me, but one of the biggest picks that he ever had was Troy Polamalu. Might be the biggest pick that he's ever had outside of Ben Roethlisberger. And that was a trade up to get a star safety on a defense that had talent on it, but on a roster that needed a young starting quarterback. They passed on it that year, and they went and got Ben Roethlisberger the very next season. And it just so happens it looks like that could be a way how things play out this year. You have a really interesting quarterback class coming next year, an underwhelming quarterback class this year. And if Kyle Hamilton does fall, because some people are projecting that he will, because people didn't like his 40 time, or they think that there's other prospects that could be better suited. If he falls far enough, I think he's a player that you could trade up for. And again, think of it this way. If you're getting Kyle Hamilton now, he's 20 years old. You'll have him on the next 5 years under contract with his rookie deal with a 5-year extension. Most likely the Steelers re-sign Minkah Fitzpatrick to a big expensive contract to be one of the top safeties in the league. You then have maybe the best safety pair in the league. And again, then you could probably go sign Terrell Edmunds for cheap and add him back to the roster, and you have a 3-safety rotation that you're very confident about. And then at the end of Kyle Hamilton's contract, when you're ready to pay him the big bucks, because again, the whole thing is you can't afford to pay 2 safeties big safety money. You can pay one decent money or one rookie money while paying the other big money. But if you have a superstar safety on a rookie contract like Kyle Hamilton, and you're paying your star safety and Minkah Fitzpatrick, when Minkah's contract is up, guess whose rookie deal will be up? Minkah Fitzpatrick will be 30 years old. Kyle Hamilton will be 25 years old. And then there'll be a situation like, okay, Kyle Hamilton gets the big dollars. You say, Minkah, all right, we'll see where you're at then. But you won't have to be the priority. And as a team, you could afford to pay Kyle Hamilton and then see what you want to do with Minkah Fitzpatrick or this free safety position. But it just makes a lot of sense for that trade up. But this is, again, why I think that the defense could be a serious focus, getting an X-factor type of player with this first-round pick, whether it's at 20th overall, 12th overall, or 27th overall, if they trade back, which I do think is a possibility. But again, the key here is that the Steelers have positioned themselves that they can take any of these routes. If Malik Willis falls to 20, yay, great. You take Malik Willis and you take that experiment and you see how that goes. Jordan Davis falls to 20. Yay, awesome. Kyle Hamilton falls down into the, outside the top 10. Trade up and go get him. Maybe you do that for Jordan Davis as well. Maybe one of these star receivers, Jameson Williams or Chris Olave, fall to you at 20 somehow. Maybe one of the top corners falls to you. Again, that's the position the Steelers are in. They can take so many of these roads, go in different directions. But either way, you're looking to draft a guy who's going to be a pillar player of this next era, the first part of the post-Ben Roethlisberger era, to see who can step up, be a leader, and a key contributor on this next team. And with how this roster currently looks, the defense is going to be a huge part of that. And you're going to want to see how that defense, you want to see that defense at its best. And if you can get another young playmaker to join that group and be part of that nucleus moving forward, it can make it even better and maybe make it easier for whoever eventually is the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger to be the next franchise quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's all we have for you today on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks so much for checking us out. Thanks again to Jenna Harner for making it. We're very sorry we couldn't include her on this third segment recording, but we do enjoy having her here. We look to have her here as much as possible over the next several weeks as we get you ready. The NFL draft is next week. We'll keep you up to date with everything leading up into it. Check us out here on the Locked On Steelers podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily content Monday through Friday, as well as our breaking news updates and our special episodes over the weekend. We might put some special episodes up this weekend because we had a lot of questions from you guys, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to get to all of them next week. So the ones that I'm not sure, we'll probably do some bonus episodes about. So do be on the lookout for our YouTube channel for our bonus episodes and recordings there, if we can get them up. So with all that, thanks again for checking us out. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Check me out there. Check out all my work here at DKPittsburghSports.com. It's going to be draft week next week, so stay tuned for that. Also, Mock Draft Monday, it's the last one. So if you want to get yours in, hit me up on Twitter with your mock draft. Hit me up on the Facebook group, the Locked On Steelers Facebook group, which you can search on Facebook, Locked On Steelers. Ask to join the group. We'll add you as soon as possible and get your screenshot of your picks in to see if you'll win the final Mock Draft Monday and get your picks evaluated right here on the show. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great weekend. I'll be back on your screens and in your ears on Monday.